Hello and welcome. It is 9 o'clock. It is the 25th day of August 2021. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. It is RPG a day 25. Day 25. We've been doing this for 25 days. Every day we have this list of prompts presented to us by the wonderful people over at autocratic.com and castingshadows.blog.com. And of course on Facebook, where they give us these prompts. And from these prompts, we can discuss them as it relates to some or all aspects of our amazing hobby that is tabletop role-playing game. And today's words are dangerous territory, because the words are welcome, tradition, fresh, and box. Welcoming people to the tradition that is tabletop role-playing game, allowing fresh players to open the Pandora's box that is tabletop role-playing game. It's pretty obvious what they want to talk about in this one. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So, content warning, probably going to be talking about the G word, gatekeeping, in this vlog. So if the idea of gatekeeping upsets you, please stop watching now. I'll take a break. Lemonade. Today's word is welcome / tradition / fresh / box. So obviously, we have to address the issue of welcoming new players to the table, continuing the tradition of tabletop role-playing game to a new, fresh generation of players, because if we don't, the hobby will die out. It's not like D&D has babies. We need to constantly welcome new people to the table and allow them to open the box, the Pandora's box that is tabletop role-playing game. But then there's also the very dangerous precipice that is gatekeeping, which I myself have been referred to as a toxic gatekeeper, which is not allowing people to play or laying some level of judgment on how people play. The idea that the way I played or the way we played back then was better, different, more appropriate, and the way people are playing now is not. And so we have to gatekeep them, keep them away from the hobby, to keep the hobby pure, because as these new people come in, they pollute our tradition. And there has been a very dangerous spiral over the past 2 years of how some of these new players are affecting the waters of role-playing and creating a toxic environment. Now, there's always been people who have come to the table and, quote-unquote, wanted to pee in the Cheerios. I myself have been included. I myself have been accused of peeing in the bowl of Cheerios when it comes to tabletop role-playing game, that I am a gatekeeper, that I have certain expectations, traditions, ideas of the way my game should be run, and I will tell people they're not appropriate for my game if they don't fit up to my traditions, my ideas. And that is absolutely 100% true. I have gatekeeped, and I will continue to gatekeep. I will continue to tell people, I don't think my game's for you, but let me help you find a game that is for you. That is always what I have said and always what I will say. I understand my style is very unique. It doesn't appeal to everyone. Some people come to the table with certain expectations that the game is going to work a certain way, especially thanks to Critical Role. We will get to that in a moment. My game works my way. I have adapted it and improvised and changed, and obviously I'm not the same DM I was a year ago or 10 years ago, but still, I have a very specific way. And if you come to my table and you're okay with that specific way and you understand that specific way, we're fine. But if you come to my table with this very rigid idea of the way the game should be, and you try and bring that to my table and you continue to butt heads with me, or you continue to act in a way that I think is inappropriate for the table, then I will take you to the side, give you a warning, and if it continues, I will say, look, I don't think my game's for you, but let me help you find the game that is. Now that has been interpreted as being bad for D&D and that I gatekeep people, that I send people away. And I suppose from a toxic point of view, I have. I don't believe so because I have always offered them the hand to help them find the game that does work for them or to communicate with me so we can come to a happy medium. I'm not going to allow that, but maybe we can find something that's similar that I will allow. Can we work together? Sadly, 9 out of 10 times, we can't because people are so locked in that expectation of the way the game should be, especially thanks to Critical Role, that they don't want to follow the tradition. They think we're playing D&D wrong if we don't do it the way they think it should be done, and they're not willing to work with us. And then true, on the other side, there's plenty of DMs who aren't willing to work with new players, that they feel the new players are polluting the tradition of the game. Of course, at some point in time, you were a new player. You sat at a table. You had ideas. You had expectations, and you were either willing to work with the DM or not, and the DM was really willing to work for you or not. There's been plenty of games I have sat down at, and I had certain ideas, and if they didn't work with the DM, I was either willing to adapt or I was willing to walk away, or in some cases, I was told to walk away or to take a break. I can remember a couple occasions when the DM told me that I was not a good player for his game and I needed to take a break or find a new game. Of course, we could have worked together, but there's always that potential to work with somebody, to break down those barriers, to welcome them to the table. We should welcome to the table. In the old days, if somebody walked by and even showed a passing interest in us playing D&D, we would practically beg them to come play with us because we were so desperate for new players. We were always welcome to teach somebody. But things have evolved. Things have changed. We've become much more secular, much more grasped to what we think the tradition of the hobby should be. And if somebody comes and shakes that paradigm, many of us become defensive and angry and accusatory. And on the reverse side of that, over the past couple of years, there has been an influx of new blood that has started to say some very toxic things about us older players and the way the game should be played. More inclusive, more diversity, more woke, as it's constantly accused, more liberal. You can't do things like you did it in the old days. We've been playing D&D wrong, and the way they're playing it now is the right way. And if we don't play it their way, we're racist, sexist, homophobic. There's this constant toxicity. There's always sort of been some aspects of the hobby that are toxic. There's always been somebody who's been accused of flipping the table or peeing in the Cheerios, including myself. But over the past few years, that has increased. There's been lots of attacks on the hobby, which has sort of re-inspired the idea of gatekeeping, of making people not feel welcome, of holding on to the tradition because these fresh players who are bringing this sort of toxic censorship to the table. And further investigation shows that a lot of these people don't even play. That for every 10 of them who are saying these things, like we're racist, sexist, homophobic, anti-woman, all these other things, 9 of them don't play the game. They just have this expectation of the way the game should be. And when they see things that don't meet that expectation, like scantily clad drow women, they attack it. They attack it with this vehement, virile, violent toxicity. They're Karens. They want the game. They take it apart and they want the game to fit a certain mold, even if they don't play that way, because of Critical Role. And yes, while there has always been people who have attacked the hobby, the Satanic Panic, the Nancy Reagan, the drugs thing, the church thing, the computer thing, the we promote Satan worshiping, we promote violence, we promote bad studying, we make people stupider. There has always been attacks against the hobby, and there will always be attacks against the hobby, but usually from the outside. Yes, there has been attacks from the inside. That's not unusual. My game's better than your game is not a new thing. But this new level of toxicity and how we're responding to it by making people feel not welcome because we want to defend their tradition. This new level of things, like being told that we're sexist, racist, homophobic, discriminating against handicap. I have to have my combat wheelchair or you're discriminating against me. That's new. And it's very virile. It's very violent. It is a civil war that will eventually result in physical conflict if it hasn't already. There's definitely been lots of verbal conflict, and that verbal conflict is increasing. They attack us, we respond, we attack them, they respond, they attack us. They find some new aspect of the hobby to attack, like rewriting the entire history of Drow Elves and Drizzt because it's not politically correct anymore. And the politically correct thing's been around for a very long time. Changing the gender of a character in the story from female to male or male to female because it's woke, it's politically correct. If we don't, we're discriminatory. That's new because it's coming from inside the hobby. And again, out of 10 of these people, research has shown 9 of them aren't even playing at the table. They just have this ideal of the way the game should be. And if we're not playing it that way, we're playing it wrong. And we're hurting people. So in return, we gatekeep. We're getting to the point where we don't know if we want to make people welcome at the table because you have this expectation. And if we don't meet that expectation, if you're not willing to work with us, you attack us. And in the past, we would either help you find a new game, hopefully, or you'd be willing to work with us, or we'd be willing to find a happy medium and move on, because remembering at the end of the day, it's a game. But now our tradition is being attacked. We have a new, fresh wave of players, and we need new, fresh players to continue the hobby, and the hobby will evolve and change. My D&D is not the same as the D&D is playing today. That's fine. It's okay. I understand that my D&D is different than today's D&D. I'm willing to move on. I'm willing to learn new games. I have things I'm willing to do. I have things I'm not willing to do. I have things I'm willing to allow at my table and have things to not allow at my table. Yes, will I continue to gatekeep? In some way, I will. If you come to my table with this new expectation of the way the game should be, the Mercer Effect, as it is constantly referred to, and you're not willing to work with me, then I will say again, let me help you find a game that will allow you to play. And who do we have to blame for this? Who do we have to blame for this new secular tradition of attacking our tradition, this new politically correct woke SJW thing? In the past, it was always on the outside. Satanic panic was other people attacking the hobby. But now it's the hobby attacking itself. And sadly, it's Critical Role. So once again, content warning. If you've come this far, I'm going to say a few not nice things about Critical Role. So if that's something that upsets you, stop watching it now. I'm going to drink some more of my lemonade. Yes, Critical Role has been good for the hobby. It has been amazing for the hobby. It has brought the hobby, quote unquote, into the mainstream. Of course, the hobby has always been in the mainstream. We've been in the mainstream since day one. Dungeons & Dragons has influenced every aspect of pop culture and media since day one. There's no video game you can look at in your collection that wasn't in some way influenced by Dungeons & Dragons. There's no fantasy or science fiction movie that didn't come out after 1976 that wasn't in some way, some form influenced by Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons creates creative people. Those creative people go into the media, into multiple aspects of the world, and they take D&D tradition with them. So it's not like Critical Role is the first time we were publicly aware. In fact, most of that's more thanks to Stranger Things and Stephen Colbert than Critical Role. But Critical Role, yes, did a lot to bring awareness to the table, did a lot to bring new people to the table, did a lot to bring old people back to the table, did a lot to generate income for the table. So yes, Critical Role is a good thing. Critical Role is also an awful thing, and I will say, again, because of my experience, and yes, Critical Role has helped people. It has done things. It has helped people to get through hard times. It has helped people to deal with social, mental, emotional issues. It has helped people to come out. It has helped people to deal with the world. They have used it as one aspect of their therapy, but Critical Role is not therapy. And there are other things that have helped those people in addition to Critical Role. Critical Role brings hundreds of thousands of people joy. That's nothing wrong with that. On the flip side, of course, is Critical Role has done as much harm to the hobby as it has done good, because it has established this expectation of the way Dungeons & Dragons should be played. And people watch Critical Role with no previous idea of the tradition of the hobby, come to the table and expect the game to be played like Critical Role. And when it's not, they become upset. And more often than not, sadly, they become violent. Either verbally violent or, sadly, at least in more than one case, physically violent. How dare you not play your game the same way Matt Mercer does? How dare you not allow me this, Matt Mercer would? You don't play D&D right. Your game is wrong. Your tradition is wrong. Your beliefs are wrong. You're a racist. You're a sexist. You're homophobic. You're discriminatory. You don't like girls. You don't like handicapped people. You don't like young kids playing. You're a gatekeeper because you're not playing the game the same way Matt Mercer and Jeannie D do. So that is the tradition that we're trying to protect. We want to work with, at least I do, we want to work with these people. We don't want to be gatekeepers, but unfortunately we have to be gatekeepers. We have to let people know that you need to respect the tradition and the history of the hobby. Tell us what you want, and maybe we can work together to create a new, fresh, out-of-the-box next level of role-playing. We have to be more open, us gatekeepers, to welcome new players to the table. And the new players have to be more welcoming to the tradition while bringing a new perspective to it. We have to work together. As long as we're not working against it, as long as there's one group attacking the other group, this will continue to spiral. Groups will continue to shatter. It will continue to become more secular. People will not be able to work together. The Cold War has become a civil war, and eventually there will be physical conflict. There already has been physical conflict. I've been a victim of that physical conflict. I know other people who've been victim of that physical conflict. It's happening as recently as 2 weeks ago because we play D&D wrong. You all know my story for my very first encounter with Critical Role. If you don't, I've talked about it 100 times, but I'll talk about it again. You have to understand, I don't believe I said anything wrong. I was at a place, I was at Cess Games Anime, somebody came up to me, asked me some question about Critical Role, and I said, I've heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I've heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And he assaulted me. He grabbed me by my shirt, pushed me against the wall, got in my face, and, spouted out foul words and language and threatened me. How dare I not know what Critical Role was? I didn't say anything bad about Critical Role. I said, I've heard of it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And I was physically assaulted. And I have seen other people physically assaulted and bullied, and Critical Role has been used as the excuse. So I want to welcome you to my table. I don't want you to call me a gatekeeper. I want to continue the tradition of the role-playing hobby. And I want to be willing to listen to your fresh ideas. I am willing to work with you if you're willing to work with me. If you're not willing to work with me, then yes, I am a gatekeeper. and I will send you on your way, because there is no place for you if you're coming with this expectation and you're not willing to bend. Just like there's no place for me if I'm not willing to learn, if I'm not willing to bend, if I'm not willing to be open to fresh interpretations. We have to be more open. We have to be more welcoming, but we also have to be more vigilant over the tradition. Yes, I want to hear fresh ideas, but I do not want to be attacked. I do not want to be insulted. I do not want to be threatened. I do not want to be, called names. So, yes, I'm going to be very welcoming, but I'm also going to be a gatekeeper. And I'm going to say, if you're not willing to work with me, let me help you find a game that is willing to work with you. Welcome. Thanks a lot, Autocratic. Like, there was no way I couldn't not make this any less ugly. Wow. Just welcome. You had to know what people were going to talk about with words like welcome, tradition, fresh, and box. Wow. Wow, just wow. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. This is day 25 of RPG a Day. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you don't appreciate this content and think I should shut the fuck up, you're probably going to say, let me know. Either way, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me reach 1,000 subs. Once again, content warning and trigger warning. I talk about gatekeeping and Critical Role in this vlog. And if you do not appreciate me saying less than positive things about Critical Role, you probably shouldn't watch. Till next time, happy back to school. Stay warm, stay safe, stay dry, stay sane, stay sober, stay hydrated, stay off my land. Talk to you later.